Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of AGV Podcast. My name is Gugu and I'm going to be your host for today. With me in studio today, I have these two lovely ladies. We have Chantel and we have Andile. Hi ladies, welcome to today's podcast.
Hi Gugu.
Okay, so as you know, as Africans, culture is a big part of our lives. You can see it in how we braid our hair, you can see it in how we dress, you can see it in the food, the music. And so today we're going to be talking about culture and how it connects to SRHR, because you know that culture diffuses itself into our everyday lives. So I want to hear what you guys think about culture in connection to sexual and reproductive health rights.
Okay. I think as a multicultural country, we have different cultural practices, but they all come from the same idea of how best to embrace sexual and reproductive health. So the way that we express ourselves in our different cultures still go back to the same idea, although we are different in terms of expression. Yeah.
I also agree with what you're saying, that our cultures affect how we view ourselves, how we identify, and what values we have, and like whether or not we're confident about our reproductive systems, how we take care of our reproductive health, and just how we identify overly sexually. Do we know our rights? Do we uphold our rights? So yeah, I think it's highly interconnected with culture.
Okay. And so, as we proceed forward, we'd like to keep in mind that culture is not, one set thing that we've been inheriting over, the generations. Culture is something that's forever changing. And so culture is what we make of it. So maybe I'd like to hear the not so good parts you think that are there when it comes to culture and how it affects how we view SRHR.
I think the way our culture was designed from our ancestors, the older generation, I think with the incorporation of human rights in our generation, I think there's a bit of a clash and lack of understanding each other. Bringing in human rights, it sounds so modern, and whereas our culture sounds so, we make it sound so outdated, but I think it's all in lack of mutual understanding or mutual ground to land on. So yeah, I think that's where the glitch is, yeah.
Okay.
I think I can say culture is like highly manifested in gender roles and also in marriage, and how like as a woman, your ultimate goal, your ultimate purpose in life is to like get married. That's your highest qualification according to culture, and it's not a degree, it's not anything else. You have to be a wife, you have to be a mother, and also other gender roles. So I feel like culture is highly manifested in gender roles and also marriage.
Oh, okay. So I hear that you're saying that, how culture relates to human rights and women's rights are human rights.
Yeah.
And how you're saying that, culture manifests in how people perceive gender roles. So are you saying that certain gender roles hinder women in progressing in certain ways?
Yes, of course, economically, educationally, and also in terms of gender roles, like maybe within the home, you're the one who's supposed to take care of everyone, like do all the housework and also provide emotional support. And you're also supposed to make sure everyone is happy. You're supposed to please your husband, and sometimes that goes at the cost of your own well-being, and that too in terms of like your reproductive or sexual well-being can also be affected by those gender roles that you have.
Okay. And I like the point that I'm hearing, but then are we saying that is what is going to hinder you, or certain things to an excess hinder you? Because we've seen people thrive, women that still thrive even though they are doing certain gender roles. And so are we saying that those gender roles, they are the ones that hinder them, or when they're done to a certain point or in excess, or maybe because as you say, culture is something that's evolving. So we still have certain gender roles, but a woman is not only now entitled to being at home and taking care of everyone. She can still go to work, but then she can still come back home and be a mom. So are we saying that those gender roles, as they were set, they hinder women in progressing in certain fields? Or are saying if they're done in excess, or maybe if they're done in a certain way?
I think it's in the way that they are taught. I think we're not given enough information. We're not saying it's wrong for women to cook. We're not saying it's wrong for women to be mothers. We're not saying it's wrong, but we're saying let enough or adequate information be given to say being a girl just doesn't end at you cleaning the house, cooking, fetching water, taking care of everyone, but it extends to being you, be expressive. You are allowed to have aspirations. You are allowed to be a go-getter. Yeah, you are allowed to have what you want, you know, because looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, we have a goal that says that says we should have gender equality, right? So we're saying that in order for us to achieve that, we have to be taught certain things. We have to be given the right information. We mustn't just be given our traditional roles, kupela, but we also have to be told of the things that we can do. It mustn't just be a restriction of what you cannot do, but it also has to be an allowance of what you can do.
So this is when it all comes down to modernizing culture, because
Yeah.
culture is what we make of it. So what we're saying now is that what is wrong is us maintaining the standards that we set a long time ago that might not be friendly to the modern woman, but we still maintain parts of our culture, but we modernize it.
Yeah, it's more like we mustn't have a case of culture versus modernity, but let's combine the two. I'm sure we can have something productive, something that we can work with without having to erase our roots, but also embrace our roots and at the same time be receptive to change.
And I feel like a culture is bad when it's now infringing on human rights.
Yeah.
It's a good culture if it still embraces the fact that one can choose what they want. But now when something is being chosen for you, like for example, if we look at female genital mutilation and how they're just going to do something to you because your great grandmother, that's what was done to her, then you don't have a choice about your own body. Then in that sense, that's a harmful culture.
Okay, so yeah, again, it all comes down to modernizing our culture. As you were saying that for us to make culture something that's going to be friendly to the modern young woman, it doesn't mean we have to erase the roots that we left for us. Because I believe, we are who we are because there were great grandmothers before us who were, right? So it would seem honestly insane and ridiculous if we were to say, no, we're wiping out the entire culture because we want, certain practices to be, there for the modern young woman, because they're beautiful parts of our culture that we still need to carry on. For example, how, when a young girl is growing up and when you're stepping into womanhood, when you, start going on menstruation, you're going to have aunts that come to you and talk to you about certain things, how to take care of yourself. That was part of our culture. And then when we're saying we needed to be more modernized to the young woman, we now need them maybe to come with information like menstrual hygiene, to get
That's accurate.
information that's accurate. So that's maybe how culture is going to play an effective role in the SRHR of young women. So, well, I'd like to hear from you. What else would you think like that we can do within our culture that is going to accommodate the young woman?
I think if we have inclusive information, right? Because it's pointless to go to young people and teach them about menstrual hygiene, for example. You have to understand that I live under my mom's roof. So at the end of the day, what my mom tells me is what's going to happen. Imagine me going to tell my mom, so my mom's going to tell me, Kuku doesn't feed you. You do what I... So we have to have inclusive information rotating within our cultural structures, We have to understand that every community, every culture has gatekeepers, We have those aunties that we know they are responsible for this. Those are the right people to go to. Those are the right people to start with, So instead of just trying to infringe our beliefs and SRHR information on young people, but let's have it inclusive.
Exactly. Like that's exactly what I'm thinking, to say sometimes just empowering like a daughter in a family can be disrupting because she goes there, now she's empowered with all this knowledge that's different from what her mother believes, and now they're not getting along well because of that, or they're not getting along with the father or whoever is in the family, because you're only empowering like one individual. What if you start like maybe at the top and also involve parents in such conversations, so that because they're the ones who lead like the family, so if they understand the point of like maybe embracing rights or the health of young girls, then it can be more effective, and that way we're also maintaining like healthy families.
Okay. I love what I'm hearing, that comprehensive sexual education should also involve our mothers, our parents. So what do you think of them also involving people like the cultural leaders in the programming? You have all those organizations that are trying to push a comprehensive sexual education, but they're mostly focusing on the young people. And if you're fortunate, they're also going to focus on the parents.
Yeah.
But what do you think of their programming also involving the cultural leaders, like the real grown-ups, our grandmothers, our grandfathers? Are they still up to receive the information?
I think that's one question that still stands, because it's quite difficult to convince a person who existed like centuries before you did to say, no, what you're doing is wrong, or what you're doing needs to be updated in a way, because sometimes the way that we put out the information, to them it might sound like you're telling them that you're outdated or something, So I think it's one thing that requires us to sit down and really think it through, to say how best do we approach our elders without offending them, without making it sound like we're telling them that their information is expired.
Yeah, I agree, because like sometimes also at the same time, those religious leaders or whoever is in some role of like power who holds those harmful cultural beliefs is benefiting out of that. For example, we can look at how some girls, maybe they go to churches where there are rituals or ceremonies that are done in the name of cleansing or whatever. But in that process, you have to have maybe sexual intercourse with the pastor, with whoever it is, for the cleansing to be complete. And someone is benefiting sexual favors from young girls. So how do you convince such a person to just change and start to be this human rights advocate? It's not possible. So sometimes maybe being disruptive is the solution. You can't always be kind, because you need to understand that you're now taking away someone's whatever benefits they were getting from promoting those harmful practices. So also maybe being activists against such is also important, because we have people who are like rigid mentally.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, we're saying that penetrating communities that have had a certain way of living for a very long time is going to be hard when you're now coming with the new SRHR information. So, but then are we not saying maybe when a certain project or program wants to take on maybe a village, that it's going to be hard going through maybe, let's say, the chiefs, so maybe we shouldn't take that route?
I think in like the designing of the program, they have to include those people. It's so hard to implement something on us when you have not included us in designing it. So I think from the designing part, they have to be involved. Then I think it would ensure a smooth flow of the implementation if they were there from the word go.
Yeah, that's so true, because I feel like if you just come with like a program and then you're like, oh, I want to do this, they don't feel like they own it, But if you like taking the ideas, and I feel like sometimes we just have this idea that we want to go to a community and then change something, But then also we need to understand that if we honor those people's perspectives and views and make them feel respected, because everyone wants to feel powerful, right? So if you make them feel powerful and respected, like they're important, then that can help soften them, and that can be a good route as well.
Okay, so as we're not wrapping up, is there something you'd like to say about culture and connection to SRHR that you haven't said yet?
All right, I think we have to celebrate our culture, but in celebrating culture, let's not infringe on each other's rights. I think that's the only thing that I'd have to say.
Also, I could say like I once googled like the definition of culture, and it said it's a belief system that is created by a community, then starts to be passed down from generation to generation.
Exactly.
And as time moves, things evolve, and some things stop being relevant. So it's not like culture is something that cannot be changed. Culture can be changed. It's just a belief system from many years ago. That doesn't mean we can't use our own belief system to create a culture.
So there you heard it from the lovely ladies and me, your host, that culture is not this rigid set rule that has been passed down from generation to generation. Culture is what we make of it. You can see when how we dress, we've modernized the culture. You can see in the music. I mean, a long time ago there used to be the their type of music, and now the culture is amapiano, guaito, the likes of that. So you can see in all those other lifestyles that have been evolving and changing that, as the entire world is modernizing, it wouldn't be fair on the young woman for her to receive a culture that has been passed down but has never been revisited or reviewed to fit the modern standards. So it's not that we're wiping away our culture, because our culture, as we've received it, it's a beautiful thing, and it makes us who we are. And as Africans, you can never do away with your culture. So what those lovely ladies are saying is that let's just make culture modern and make sure that it incorporates the young woman and her goals. Okay, so there you heard it from me, your host Kuku, and the lovely ladies Andile and Shanti. Thank you so much for joining today's podcast. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.